Week 15 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first guy, Andrew Vaughn, of the Chicago White Sox. Have won one of their top prospects coming up through this White Sox system over the last few seasons. And last year wasn't a great year for him. 15 homers, 48 RBIs, and a 235 average. But so far this season, pretty solid. 10 homers, 49 RBIs, 38 runs scored, 295 average, and a 344 on base. But over the last few weeks here, he's been hot here, Vaughn. 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a 324 average, and a 359. So right here, the on-base to batting average ratio I don't like. And his power still isn't all that great, but he's hitting well right now is Vaughn. He's a mainstay, no doubt about it, in this White Sox lineup, batting third. And he's also a guy many people picked up over the last few weeks here. So if you could pick up a guy and then flip him in a deal for a decent starting pitcher, I think this would be the time to do it here with Vaughn. Because right now, I could see him start to slump a little bit. And right now, while he's at peak value where he's been all season, this would be a perfect time to flip him. July 15th at the Twins, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. July 16th at the Twins, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. July 17th at the Twins, 3 for 4, home and 3 RBIs. July 22nd versus Cleveland, 1 for 4. And July 23rd versus Cleveland in a doubleheader, 2 for 9, 2 runs scored, and an RBI. And July 23rd at the Rockies, 0 for 3. So right here, he's been slumping over the last 2 or 3 games, but over the last 2 weeks here, he's still playing good baseball. He qualifies at first in the outfield. And if you need like a 4th or 5th starter for your fantasy rotation, I think Vaughn could get that done for fantasy owners. The next guy is Andrew Benintendi of the Kansas City Royals. So pretty solid this year here. 3 home runs, 39 RBIs, 40 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 321 average, and a 389 on base. But over the last month of the season, he is white hot, no home runs, 14 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 12 runs scored, a 405 batting average, and a 467 on base here for Benintendi. So a lot of rumors here that the Yankees interested in him, into making a trade for him, and a couple other teams around the league as well. So Benintendi, he's a rental, I believe, here. And the Royals, they're going nowhere this season. So I definitely could see him being traded before the August 2nd trade deadline. And the last few games here from Benintendi: July 22nd versus Tampa, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. July 23rd versus Tampa, 1 for 4, run in a bag. July 24th versus Tampa, 1 for 4. July 25th versus the Angels, 3 for 5, 2 runs in a bag. And July 26th versus the Angels, 1 for 4. So right here, change of scenery actually might not help Benintendi. And his power numbers are down as well. 3 home runs this season, that is nothing, especially nowadays here for a guy who plays every day in the league. I know the batting average is great. I know the on-base is solid as well, almost at 400 this season here. But the power's down, the RBIs are down. And even if he gets traded to another team, it's going to take him time to acclimate. So right now, while Benintendi is red hot here, hitting over 400 over the last month, which obviously isn't sustainable for the remainder of the season, this is a perfect time to sell him high this week. Because if he does get traded to another team, he might struggle here, where right now it looks like he's comfortable in Kansas City. And also, the power numbers are just way too low for me to have a guy consistently in my lineup every day here if he's not going to hit for power. Even I know the batting average is great, but this week, sell him high. The next guy, Ramon Urias of the Baltimore Orioles. So Urias, he's been one of the hottest pickups in fantasy baseball over the last 2 weeks here. Added in 53% of leagues over that time. On the season, 11 homers, 36 RBIs, 33 runs scored, a 268 average, and a 310 on base. But over the last month of the season, this guy's been white hot as well. 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 397 average, and a 426 on base. So Urias, he's been playing great. This Baltimore Oriole team, they've been playing great baseball in the month of July here, including a 10-game winning streak earlier in the month here. And right now, he qualifies second, third, and short, so he's got great value qualifying in a lot of positions. And he's also had 3-game winning hits over the last few weeks as well here. July 17th at the Rays, 1 for 4 with an RBI. July 22nd versus the Yankees, 1 for 4 and RBI. July 23rd versus the Yankees, 3 for 4, homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. July 24th versus the Yankees, 1 for 4. July 25th versus the Rays, 2 for 4. And July 26th versus the Rays, 1 for 3. Home at 2 RBIs. So right here, Urias, he's playing great. But there's no way this is going to be maintainable as well. Him showing this power out of nowhere this season here. Hitting 400 about here in the last month of the season. Last season, we know he came up for 262 at-bats, and his numbers were pretty solid then, but right here he's taking it to a next level this season here is Urias. But right now, I would sell him high while he's white hot, and he's probably not going to get any better than this season. This is what his ceiling is, and with the versatility, I think you could get a good hitter or a great pitcher in a deal for Urias right now. The next guy, JT Realmuto of the Philadelphia Phillies. So Realmuto, it's been an up and down season here, but he's starting to get it going finally. If the first 2-3 months of the year he hasn't done much for fantasy owners on the season, 9 homers, 42 RBIs, 43 runs scored, 13 stolen bases, a 254 average, and a 328 on base. But over the last 2 weeks here, he's on fire. 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 417 average, and a 500 on base. So Realmuto, he's not going to be an elite catcher like he once was, obviously, in his Miami Marlin days here. So right now, while he's getting on fire for this Philly team, you could get a lot in a deal, especially that he's obviously a catcher, and catcher is probably the weakest position in fantasy baseball. The last few games here for Realmuto: July 15th at the Marlins, 3 for 4 in RBI, a stolen base. July 16th at the Marlins, 2 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. July 17th at the Marlins, 1 for 3 with a run. July 22nd versus the Cubs, 1 for 2. July 23rd versus the Cubs, 1 for 4 with a rib. July 25th versus the Braves, 1 for 4, an RBI, a stolen base. And July 26th versus Atlanta, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 RBI. So right here, he's playing great baseball, but he's a guy who would sell high because, like I mentioned, the first 2-3 months of the season, he really didn't do much for fantasy owners. And right now, I could see that happening once again here for Realmuto, where he's on a little bit of a hot streak, but then he fizzles out and he don't do much, and you can't get good value for him. So right now, with fantasy baseball deadlines coming up in the next couple weeks here, this would be a perfect time to sell Realmuto. And the final hitter I look to sell this week, Sean Murphy of the Oakland Athletics. Sean Murphy, he's been a topic of trade rumors in the majors this season. And Murphy, he's having a pretty solid year for a catcher. That's obviously a weak position, like I just mentioned in the Realmuto stuff. On the season, 11 home runs, 40 RBIs, 42 runs scored, a stolen base, a 244 average, and a 322 on base. But over this month here for Murphy, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, a stolen base, 17 runs scored, a 306 average, and a 390 on base. So right now, he's playing great baseball. And the A's, they're probably happy about that his value will go up a little bit right before the deadline if they're going to trade him. And the teams in on him is the Rays, the Houston Astros, and the New York Mets, all teams looking obviously for bats. And right now, he's in a prime position over here in Oakland, batting third. So if he goes to one of those other teams, he's going to be dropped in the lineup 6th or 7th, most likely, or even 8th. And he's also a guy, maybe a change of scenery won't help him as well, because he's been with the A's now a few seasons. So the last few games here for Murphy, July 17th at Houston, 1 for 4 with a run. July 21st versus Detroit in a doubleheader, 1 for 6, a home and 3 RBIs. July 22nd versus Texas, 1 for 3, a run. July 23rd versus Texas, 1 for 3. July 24th versus Texas, 2 for 3, a homer, an RBI, 2 runs scored. July 25th versus Houston, 1 for 4 with a run. In July 26th versus Houston, 0 for 2 with a run. So right here, he's playing every day. One of the better catches over the last month of the season here in fantasy baseball. And a hot pickup as well over the last month. So right here, he's playing good baseball. But a change of scenery actually could hurt him. Like I mentioned, moving down in the lineup in one of those contending teams here. And also, he's been a hit-or-miss type of player throughout his career, is Murphy. So right now, while he's a hit and playing good baseball, this is a perfect time to sell him high and probably get a closer or a good starting pitcher in a deal for him. So that's a few hitters I look to sell and trade here for Week 15 of the fantasy baseball season.